How can one overcome the widespread fear among many that actions might be shirk or polytheism? How can we overcome the widespread fear? Tamam, Bismillah. I think this is in reference to one of two matters, right? If I'm not mistaken, then this might be referring to one of two matters. Either this is in reference to a form of waswasa in which a person assumes that their actions are tantamount to shirk, right? They assume that everything that they say or that they might have thought about, etc., would lead to shirk. And that's waswasa, right? Which is a form of OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder that is specifically titled religious scrupulosity. It's a bit of a fancy term, but essentially it's a form of OCD that makes you paranoid about your acts of worship, that it is not sound, it was not performed correctly, that you've erred in your execution thereof. So this leads to people thinking that they didn't recite correctly in salah, or that their salah is invalid, or that they committed shirk, or that they didn't perform wudu properly, right? They didn't wash a limb, as it should have been. The water didn't touch everywhere. Or when they clean themselves for istinja, they obsess about the cleanliness, that they perhaps did they clean themselves properly, and then what about their hand, and then what about the splashes of the water on the body and the toilet seat, etc. So it's a very dark path that leads to, unfortunately, a very dark place, and it could even lead to a sense of insanity. However, an extreme form of this is perhaps shirk, that somebody believes that something that they said or that they did is tantamount to shirk. And of course, one should be concerned that you fall into shirk, but this is an unhealthy concern. This is an obsessive compulsive concern that is not cemented or grounded in any true evidence. That said, there's another form of reference here that this may refer to, and that is the contemporary idea that the actions of Muslims, when they pray or when they engage in certain forms of dua, because they're facing to perhaps a grave, but they're praying to Allah, or when they pray to Allah via the intercession of another, so tawassul and so forth, that these actions might amount to shirk, or that any form of innovation amounts to shirk. And there are many examples of this. So this is the other paradigm that this question may be addressed within. So we can do both, inshallah. It is healthy to be concerned about shirk, but to a reasonable degree. Remember, what is shirk? And this is, I think, the crux of the matter, is to understand what is shirk. Now, the definition of shirk is sharika, to ascribe a partner unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ascribe a partner unto Him in His divinity, in His attributes, or in His actions, saying that Allah is not the only God, wal-iyadhu billah, or saying that others share in the attributes that are unique to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal-iyadhu billah, or that actions that are supposed to only be accredited to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is falsely accredited to others, wal-iyadhu billah. So that's the essence of shirk. This is the type of shirk that takes one out of the fold of Islam. It's major shirk. It is a shirkul akbar, and this is to ascribe a partner unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one of the ways that we've mentioned. The other form of shirk is called a shirkul asghar, or the minor form of shirk. And when the Prophet ﷺ was asked what a shirkul asghar is, he said it is a riya and a sum'ah. What is riya and sum'ah? This is ostentation, right? Specifically religious ostentation, where one undertakes an action that's supposed to be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you do so in order to be seen by others, or in order to be heard. In other words, that your reputation spreads among the people. Now, the Prophet ﷺ explained this type of shirk, but this type of shirk wouldn't necessarily take one out of the fold of Islam unless it is accompanied by an intention to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But still, it is so serious that it is referred to as Ashirkul Asghar, the minor form of shirk. And the Prophet ﷺ was fearful about this form of shirk on the ummah, whereas he wasn't as concerned about the first form of shirk on the ummah. In fact, he said that I don't fear shirk upon you, but I fear other things. And he mentioned, for example, the love of wealth. And this is another instance, Ashirkul Asghar. And there are many narrations that speak of this. Still, we must be concerned about shirk. But the fact that you are worshipping Allah, the fact that you say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, that there is none worthy of worship but Allah, and that you believe in that, means that you are not deliberately committing shirk. And we can't accidentally fall into a shirkul akbar, right? You can't accidentally fall into that. You can accidentally do an action that is tantamount to shirk. For example, bowing down to the sun or bowing down to an idol and the like. So that would be deliberate. And you can also do that accidentally, but then it wouldn't take you out of the fold of Islam. So you can't accidentally fall out of the fold of Islam, right? This is the general rule, and this is how we should understand it. We don't need to fear that we are accidentally going to say something that takes us out of the fold of Islam. Even if somebody utters an expression of shirk accidentally, or their tongue runs away with them, or they do so because of insanity and the like, in all such instances, they wouldn't be out of the fold of Islam. A person who does that and is concerned need only turn to Allah in istighfar, astaghfirullah al-azim, and then carry on, right? Because there was no intent behind the action, so they did not leave the fold of Islam. Allahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam, right? As for religious scrupulosity, where one obsesses in that sense, there you require spiritual assistance. You require some cleansing, tazkiyah and tasawwuf of the qalb. You require some ilm, some knowledge of the details of fiqh, but you also require some psychological assistance, that you may be able to get from even non-Muslims, right? But ideally, from someone who understands Islam, from a Muslim, this would be ideal, and Allah knows best.
La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah.